exact same
They mean the exact same thing. I'm going to give you my opinion. I like this one better. This is my opinion and my opinion only. You don't have to adopt this opinion. I like this one because of what you just did in that quiz that you took, right? In that quiz you just took, you had to look at the interval and then see where 7.67 applied to it. It's much easier to do that if you actually see the entire interval out in front of you. Now, that being said, this is the form a lot of times research articles have them in. Why? I don't know. I don't know. It just is. It's not all the time. It's just very, very often. Much of the time. I don't have a good answer for why. So anyway, there's your wrap up there. Beautiful. I think we've answered this question, not just today, but also previously. What do you think will happen to the margin of error as sample size increases? Nothing. It'll get smaller. It'll get bigger. I hear smaller, smaller, smaller. Good. Now, I'm not going to ask you why right now, because why is a mathematical reason, which we'll get to on Tuesday. Promise. I've learned one thing in the past, is don't hit you with the definitions of confidence and the math of confidence all at the same time. Let this kind of wash over you first. Take the weekend off, forget everything, then we come back with the math. Okay, now why? We'll get to that. Here's one we haven't answered yet. Although me and Sherry, we had a little discussion about it earlier today. That's a class we had. What do you think will happen to the margin of error as your confidence increases? Now, so far today, all we dealt with was 95% confidence. That's all we dealt with, right? 95%. But you could have 99% confidence. You could have 90%. I haven't talked about why you want to change these because that's not important right now. Hell, you could have 50% confidence if you want to. Are you sure? Yep. That's totally fine. You won't get hired or work as a statistician, but you can have 50% confidence. So what do you think happens as your confidence increases to the margin of error? So nothing will happen to it. Will it get smaller or will it get bigger? What do you think? What do you think? What is your gut telling you?
Get smaller.
Yeah, smaller? Mm-hmm. What's your gut telling you? You don't know the answer to this yet. I got one vote for smaller. Give me some other note. Give me some other ideas. You don't know the answer. It's okay.
Bigger.
Smaller, bigger? Smaller, bigger? Okay, so we're kind of split between smaller and bigger. Okay. Do you still have your spreadsheet open from the warm-up? Or not from the warm-up, from the quiz you just took? You still have the Excel spreadsheet open? If you don't, we can just use mine. I'm gonna use mine. So the margin of error right here is a function of these data points up here. When you typed the command in for that margin of error, remember doing that? You typed the command in for that margin of error. You had to input, the very first number was 0.05. Do you remember that, 0.05? And I explained to you why in the document why it was 0.05. You remember why it was 0.05? Which is the same as 5%. Because it's the complement of 95% confidence. They're asking, that's got a fancy name called significance, which we'll talk about later. Let's talk about it right now. We'll talk about it at length later. But significance is the complement of confidence. So as your confidence goes up, your significance goes down, and conversely. Is that believable? Hopefully that's believable. Okay, good. If you were to change your confidence to something lower, like for example, let's make it obvious, like 50%. So this margin of error right now, 0.43, 0.39, 0.43, 0.38, 0.43. You see where it's hanging about right about the same time? If I was to change that confidence to 50% by removing that zero, which is very easy to do, isn't it? You might forget that zero and be like, oh, it's 0.5, that's 5%. 0.5 is 50%. So now if I press enter, it's actually a 50% significance, which is 50% confidence, yes? What happened to the margin of error? It got smaller. It got smaller as the confidence went down. What's going to happen? Good. I like that. That's good. That's kind of like, I don't like this yet. Good. What's going to happen as confidence goes up? If it's an inverse relationship. If it is, what's going to happen? If confidence goes up, let's make this 0.01. those are bigger, aren't they? Those are bigger than they were originally. Why is that, do you think? This is not a simple question right now. Why would confidence going up mean the margin of error is getting wider? Give me any reason, because you don't know the technical reason yet. It's okay. I want you to know what feels right. Go ahead, Denali.
It's like a bigger range, so if you have like 50% plus or minus 50%.
You'd be at 100%, right? You cover the entire thing. So the more confident you are, the bigger the range. Or if you want a bigger range, you better be more confident. Like that. Those are good answers. That's kind of like Dr. Seuss-ish. Emily, what were you going to say?
I was going to say it's just like that, like when you had the bigger margin of error, you're
Yeah. So if you think, so far, it sounds like there are actually two variables at work here. There's a sample size variable and a confidence variable. As sample size goes up, margin of error goes down. But as confidence goes up, margin of error also goes up. Okay, give me some other reasons. I saw some more hands that want to try. We're going to explain to me why confidence goes up and margin of error also gets wider. Give me something else. And it's okay. If that doesn't sit with you 100% well right now, I can live with that. Because we're going to hit it almost immediately on the first, as soon as we get together on Thursday. On Thursday. No, Tuesday. Tuesday. This is Thursday. Okay? Fair enough? So it just, right now, you have the PowerPoint, you have the answer. Try to let it wash over you for the next 7 minutes. If you want, I have an Excel spreadsheet, but my gut is telling me not to open that Excel spreadsheet today. Just based on the faces. It might just make it worse than better. If you want to dork around with it, go ahead and dork it. You have access to it right there. I want to close real simply by look. I want to close real simply without calculations, just expositions about where this stuff shows up in your lives. Most of the time, you're not going to be doing research in your lives. You're going to be consuming statistics like this. Go ahead and read that.